Welcome to the Healing Grove podcast. I'm Dr. Kristin Ryman, an integrative holistic family physician, author of Life After Lyme, and host in this virtual space of learning, healing, and growing. I believe humans are like trees, and our physical limb is only one of many. Health on all limbs of the tree, emotional, conceptual, social, spiritual, is absolutely required for the whole tree that is you to be vibrantly well. I created the Healing Grove podcast as a place to showcase some of the world's best integrative and holistic medicine, to expose you to transformative tools and mindset shifts for all limbs of your tree. I hope you enjoy our conversation in the Healing Grove today as much as I enjoyed having it. Welcome everyone to the Healing Grove podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you today to Stephen Davis. Stephen Davis is a person who has lived many of the same journeys I've lived around Lyme. And if there's anything worse than having Lyme disease yourself, it's having a child or a grandchild, in his case, who suffered from Lyme disease. For years, Stephen Davis tried everything to help find both his daughter and her two children a cure. Huge amounts of time, money, energy, emotional dollars went into finding little results. And so he began his own search, which ultimately led him into the realm of frequency medicine, which is the topic of our episode today. I'm super excited to introduce this topic because it's something that I've been interested in for a while, but haven't personally, until quite recently, gone down the rabbit hole myself and learned about. Stephen. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast and share a little bit about what it is and what brought you here.
Nice. Well, thank you for inviting me. This is great.
So tell us a little bit about what began your journey. You told me earlier that you didn't set out to start a business. You just set out to, heal your family, and you were a desperate dad. So give us a little scenario. Tell us what was going on, if you wouldn't mind.
In the beginning, my daughter was sick for 12 years. And the first 8 years, we had no idea that she had Lyme disease. So we chased everything. And doctors would constantly come back and they would tell us they can't find anything wrong with her, that they think it's a mental issue, which I never bought into. 8 years into it, in the first 8 years, she had two sons. And they both had significant health issues. One was diagnosed at a very young age to be autistic, and the other one was just ADHD off the charts. You just couldn't control them, particularly in the classroom. And so 8 years into it, I convinced a university to run some tests with my daughter, and they came back and said they found a couple markers that would lead them to think that it might be Lyme disease. And my response was, what's Lyme disease? And like, nobody's talking about it. And so we were happy as a family. Now we know what it is. Now let's go fix it. Well, 2 years later and tens of thousands of dollars later, we're in a worse place than we were when we started. And so I hooked up with another guy who was playing with some frequency technology. And we started going down a path to develop something for Lyme disease. And so we did. We ran our first trial and it worked. So in 2016, we ran a little trial and we had 12 chronic Lyme patients, 3 of them being my kids. And they only used the product for a very short period of time. It was 6 weeks and we were only doing it 30 minutes a day. It was the very first trial in 2016. And so we had a lot to learn as well. But, all the tests came back from IGeneX and it said that their Lyme was gone, but my kids were still sick. And so I said, I don't care what the blood work says. I expected, you take an antibiotic for 7 days or 14 days, at the end, you feel pretty good. Well, they didn't feel pretty good. And so one person told me, they said, when you've got Lyme disease, your body gets damaged. And once you deal with the Lyme, your body needs some time to heal. And so it was like 90 days later, my daughter, it was like turning on a light switch. She just shifted. Everything changed. My 2 grandsons, everything changed. Today, since 2016, they only used our tech for Lyme disease in that very first trial. and they have never looked back. They've never used it since. And my daughter has gone back to university, got her teaching degree. My two grandsons are excelling. The one that was autistic, he's not autistic, he had Lyme disease. And this would be the second year that he's made the nationals in swimming in Canada. And so they're just living life to the fullest. The one that had ADHD off the chart, it was kind of humorous because the school had phoned my daughter just before we did the trial and said that he either has to get on Ritalin or something, or they're going to have him go to a different school. And so 90 days later, the school phoned my daughter and said, we need to know what you put your son on so we can have it on file. And we never put him on anything. It's just that we corrected the issue, which was Lyme disease. And so I got my family back. So at that point, I've got another business that I'm running. And so now I have to make a choice. Do I continue down the path that I was doing, or do I go down this path because I've met so many people that were struggling not only with Lyme, but the financial burden is huge. Families divide because of Lyme disease. When Lyme disease affects the body, it also allows for other things to come and attack the body, like mold. We found that almost everybody who's got Lyme disease in the Bay Area, when we were doing testing, had mold. And so I knew that in order to have any success with them believing that we're dealing with Lyme disease, we needed to deal with the mold as well. Then we needed to deal with all the co-infections as well. And it just keeps going, because most people that have Lyme disease thinks that all of their issues are Lyme related. And they're not to the point where it's Lyme itself. It's just that your immune system has been compromised so badly that it allows other things to come in and cause havoc within the body, and our defense systems are down. And so we set off on a journey to recreate those information highways to wake up the immune system to issues that it's ignoring. And that's kind of the path that we took.
Amazing. And there's so many parts of that story that I just want to like shoot up a rocket. And so there's a lot of people who for whom the idea that you can recover from autism is news, right? So a lot of people don't think of autism and potential for recovery in the same category. And what do you imagine? I mean, since it touched you personally, I wonder if you've thought about this or had a lot of people you know, and what are your thoughts about how often autism has a infectious component as its sort of underlying root cause?
You know, I don't really know. I don't know anything really about autism. I just know that my grandson was diagnosed with autism, and it turned out that he had Lyme disease as well. But once we dealt with the Lyme disease, he had no symptoms or any signs of being autistic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether autism has anything to do with Lyme or not, I don't know. I just know in this particular instance, I know that if I had another grandchild that was autistic, I would definitely have them tested to see if they have Lyme disease. No question.
And the testing is, and most people listening to this remember that the testing is pretty inaccurate for Lyme. Do you ever recommend people just sort of provocatively treat with the device that you've developed for Lyme?
We find that most people that think they have Lyme know more about Lyme disease than probably most doctors. I mean, they've done so much research, and they've got a pretty good understanding of their issue. So they just take a chance and they buy our product and they get better. And that's one of the biggest things that we are doing right. You know, when we first looked at this, we looked at the body as it's been created to absorb light. And so that's why we went with a wearable using light to deliver frequencies. We also discovered that your cells, they've been designed to retain low energy light. And that's why we use the device that we've got, which is NIKKI. And this is the product here. And it's just a little wearable. And it's got a little red light on the back. And it's not red light therapy. like there's a lot of talk out there about red light therapy, and red light therapy is very good. I believe that all technology that's based around frequencies is going down the right path, because frequencies are a pretty safe way when you're dealing in the area that we deal to help overcome many things. Our focus was just happened to be Lyme disease, and that's because of my family. But it's like a vaccine. When vaccines were first invented, the very first ones, they were used to wake up your immune system to an issue that it was ignoring. And we're kind of doing the exact same thing, except we just do it through frequencies. We're delivering information only into the body so we can do zero harm. There's nothing that can harm you with our tech, but you might herx. And so, and people with Lyme disease, they're familiar with herxing, and so they get it.
Yeah. So for people who aren't familiar with Lyme disease, God bless you. I'm happy that you have no familiarity with Lyme disease. And a herx is just when you have done some killing of a pathogen such as Lyme, and the body is responding then in a way that feels like a worsening because there's inflammation that gets generated as your body cleans up the debris of the dying pathogen. So herxheimer's or herxheimer illnesses or herxheimer events are basically ways that people can mark that, yes, some killing has happened, although it doesn't always feel that great to be in them. How often do people herx on your device, and what do you tell people in terms of going up or down on the dosage? Like, how do you tweak it for people so that they don't herx as much?
Well, what we did is in the beginning, we used to run a 90-day program. And some of the people were coming back and saying that they can't wear it for even a minute because it was pretty powerful, and they would herx. Because if you don't have good drainage, you're going to herx. And so we try and deal with that for you as well. We help open up those lymphs, and hopefully the drainage begins. And with the herxing, we decided to create a program that was 1 minute where you get a bunch of frequencies delivered into the body that's going to help prep your body for the next minute. The next minute, it's going to be all about Lyme disease and co-infections. And then the next 60 minutes, there's going to be some frequencies that are helping your body recover. And it feels good to go through that process. The next day, it's going to be 2 minutes prepping the body and 2 minutes of Lyme, and then 60 minutes of the same. And the goal is to get you up to 30 minutes by 30 minutes by 60 by the end of the first month. That's where you want to be. And so there was only a few people that this was having a problem, that people were having a problem with being able to wear it. And so we went ahead and created that program, and we started seeing people get better faster. And not only were they getting better faster, the herxing was minimized. And so that became our program. So that's our whole new program that we launched this year. And it's just 1 minute of preparation for the body, 1 minute for Lyme and co-infections, and then 60 minutes of things that are going to help you recover. And then it just increases by 1 minute per day until you hit that 30-day mark. And we seem to be doing extremely well with that.
Amazing. So how difficult is it for people who are brain foggy, maybe exhausted, maybe don't have great short-term memory because their Lyme is so bad? How easy is it for them to use this device and kind of keep track of where they're supposed to be in that journey?
Well, first off, we have a customer service team that journey with people. So we never just send out a product and then they're just on their own. We're always at the other end of the phone call, at the other end of the phone to help them, because if they are herxing, our team, they've got different ways to help minimize that. And not with the device, but it might be as simple as a Epsom salt bath or something. And so, but they've got a list of things that they can recommend to help people minimize their herx. One of the interesting things, I've never seen kids herx. I don't know why that is. And it's really quite interesting because they just go right through it. And
Hmm.
there's no issue. They overcome and away they go doing
Yeah.
life.
Kids are
And
pretty resilient. They've got pretty good, their liver's not super congested yet, maybe.
that could be. And I'm not a doctor, just so you know. I was just a desperate dad. That's what threw me into this world. But I'm glad that it did, because we're helping a lot of people. And so we just don't put one frequency into the body. With Lyme, we built our own capture technology. So we capture plant-based materials, we package them together in a very unique way, and then deliver them into the body. And so for Lyme disease and dealing with the co-infections, including mold, there's 74 different frequencies that go into the body at exactly the same time. Nothing can hide. It's like we ambush the system, wake up the immune system. It recognizes the issue that it's been ignoring, and it goes and deals with it. That's the cool part. Our bodies are so uniquely made that, if you give it the right information, it's going to do the right job.
That's incredible. And so I'm just thinking through, for people who've never heard the words frequency and medicine in the same sentence, how would you describe what's actually happening? Like, you said that these frequencies are carried on the red light that's coming out, and you said that it's going to the cells in your body and that the cells are then sharing that information. Like, where do these frequencies come from, and what actually is a frequency? Like, break it down for us even a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind, Stephen.
Well, the frequencies are all organic. They're all creation based. And so they're all natural products, and they all have their own resonant frequency. Everything does. And so we put that in a chamber that, it's probably not much bigger than something like this. And as long as we can get it in there, we excite it, and it releases those frequencies, and we grab them, and then we strip away the frequencies that we don't want. And so we're very specific with what we're putting into the body. And it's always just information. Everything is frequency based. So if you take a supplement, for example, or a vitamin, or a tincture, or a cream with CBD in it, for example, those are all frequency based products, all of them. Those are just different ways of delivering frequencies into the body. We've just chosen to use light to carry our frequencies. So what's unique about us is we don't care what the color of light is. We've learned how to stack frequencies onto one wave, and that light wave carries everything into the body, and the cells pick it up. And so it's quite interesting, the approach that we've taken, because the body does all the heavy lifting. All we do is find the right frequencies, the right information. A frequency is only information. That's all it is. And so it's no different than us talking right now. We're having a frequency exchange. It's just information. And so that's why I really like what we do. Because if you speak to the body you give the body the right information, you get a right result. Everything is about communication. Bad communication in the body, you're probably not going to experience really good health. And it's no different than outside the body. If you look at the world today, bad communication, bad world. And we've got a very confusing environment outside the body because we don't have good communication. We're not clear today on exactly what's going on a global basis. And so that becomes issues. No different than the inside of your body. You need to have good communication for it to operate the way it was designed to operate.
So can everyone benefit from wearing one of these wearables? It sounds like it could maybe support healing on all levels, regardless of whether you feel sick or not.
Well, what we did is what we learned about taking multiple frequencies and putting them together to come in to approach Lyme disease and all of the co-infections that come with it. We learned something interesting. We took that same process and started applying it to sleep, pain, fatigue, stress. It just goes on because everything is frequency based. And so we've taken this technique and we're seeing profound results. If you have a sleeping issue, you won't. If you use our tech, you will sleep very well. If you're stressed, we're going to de-stress your organs. And that's where you want to be. That's how you get the stress out of your life. You'll never remove stress. because the world comes at us pretty fast and furious. But we can stop the chemical release that causes the anxiety, so you can at least think your way through it without panicking.
So when you're choosing frequencies, are these the same frequencies that are used, say, in a Rife machine to deal with Lyme and co-infections and mold, or are they something different? And if so, why?
Well, the difference between us and Rife is really focus. Rife's not focused on Lyme disease. If they were focused on Lyme disease and had a solution for Lyme disease, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation today because the Rife machine would have solved our issues. Rife machine is a very good device, but it generates one frequency at a time, and they go after multiple things because they understand the frequency connection to the body. So they get that. But you need focus. You need multiple things going into the body at exactly the same time in order to get the right result. And that's what we've learned. And that's what we've learned to be able to create in the NIKKI is like our sleep program, you'll have like 200 different frequencies going into the body at exactly the same time. And we start correcting many things while you sleep. And that's the interesting thing about frequencies is that they are pretty individual. Like you can't blend them together where you get this weird cocktail. They all act individually and they've got individual jobs that they're doing. It's like an anthill. If you ever look at a big giant anthill, it looks like it's just chaos. They're climbing over each other like it's just a little crazy. But if you kick that anthill, because they're all operating by way of frequency, if you kick that anthill, they immediately start trying to put that communication package back together where it was at. It's no different than if a hockey player gets hit. You know, he's got disruption in his muscle, he's got inflammation in his muscles, and his cells are immediately trying to get that communication back. That's what we need. It's all about communication. And so we provide communication via frequencies into the body to wake up the immune system to something that it's not doing.
So what if someone doesn't need, let's say they're trying to sleep and they don't need every one of those 200 frequencies. Is there a downside to getting a frequency that you don't, necessarily need or lack?
No, that's the interesting thing about our bodies. It's only going to use what it needs. And so if I put a frequency into the body that it doesn't need, it's like it just falls on deaf ears. It just gets ignored. It's just information. And so if you provide the right information, your cells they've got little receivers on them looking for information. And so if you pass the right information past those, they'll grab that information if they need it and use it. And it's always about waking up your immune system. That's where the problem comes in is it goes to sleep or it gets either a physical or emotional trauma of some sort that makes it stop doing its job. And we've taken what we've learned with what we're doing with Lyme, and we've got a wellness program that once you've dealt with your Lyme disease, these other programs work beautiful for you to start to restore and build because there's damage after Lyme and you need to deal with that.
So the wellness program is the one I have, which you sent me. I'm so grateful for because I don't think I ever would have purchased one because I felt pretty great. And I didn't think, well, I don't think I need one, but I did try it out. And this is the first year that I don't feel like a person with seasonal allergies. So you sent it to me at the beginning of spring, just when everything started to pop and bloom. And normally I would be like at least 5 days a month, scratching my throat, rubbing my eyes, putting drops in, using my neti pot kind of religiously. And I did have a couple days where I started down that path. And every time I would start down that path, I would just slap this thing on my wrist. And I'm not kidding, within 5 minutes, I'd be like, oh, right, I was having an allergy attack, but I'm not having an allergy attack. And I have to say, this blows my mind because between you and me, I didn't really believe it would do anything for me. I didn't really think it was a thing, even though I've had patients who've used frequency medicine before and said that really helped me. Okay, fine, I believe you. But I guess I didn't really understand it enough and I hadn't had my own personal experience. So I was a little skeptical, Stephen. I am a total believer in this thing. I was going to bring it to this conversation and flash it, except I got my daughter hooked on it, and I think she stole it and took it to work today. So I might have to get another one. But yeah, it blows me away. Now, I will say that within 3 days of using it, I asked her for her feedback because I noticed she was taking it to school every day. So when she was still in school. And so after 3 days, I said, so how's that symptom you were telling me about? Are you feeling any better? She's like, I don't want to talk about it. It makes me angry because I don't understand how it works, but don't take it away from me. It's working. So I think this conversation will help her. I'm going to, of course, share this with her to break down sort of the whys and hows. It's still a little bit mind-boggling because I agree with you. We are energy-based beings. We are frequency-based beings. Our cells all use frequencies to speak to each other, but it's still a little hard for me to grasp because you can't see it.
Well, it's like, okay, you can see it. Just like if you take a capsule, a supplement, you can see it. Or a tincture, you can see it. Or cream, you can see it. But you can't see the frequencies that are being delivered from them. And once you grab a hold of the concept that a supplement or the creams or the tinctures, they're just delivering frequencies. That's all they're doing. That's just their way of delivering. That's it. There's no difference in the frequencies. The big difference is the way we deliver. And because of the way we chose to deliver, I can put 1,000 frequencies into your body at the same time, and your body's only going to use what it needs. Where if you put 1,000 supplements in your body at one time, you're going to OD the body. And so it's really interesting dealing with just pure frequencies because it can do zero harm and it corrects only if the body needs correcting. I love what we do. I love learning how the body works like this. Like it will not OD itself. It's impossible. If you want to release serotonin, you can ask the immune system and it'll do it. And so like it's quite amazing. We do two things really, really well. If you're taking a supplement or a vitamin and I have those and you have those frequencies, you're going to have an enhanced experience. The efficacy goes way up. If you are lacking something that's naturally produced like serotonin or dopamine or other things, you can ask the body to wake the body up to start reproducing it, and it'll only reproduce what it needs. That's what I love about frequencies. We can do no harm. You can't harm the body. You can just give it the information and it'll deal with that information as it needs it. That's the cool part about what we do. And the
I
results,
love it.
and the results are just plain profound. I mean, nobody else has gone out and done something like what we've done to help people overcome Lyme disease and its co-infections. And yet, what we do, you can't see, but you can see the results. That's the experience. And that's why we're winning. Because just like what you said about your allergies, people are realizing that, hey, I might not be able to see this, but I'm seeing there's an effect. I may not understand. I was in a meeting and there was a group of people and they said to me, they wanted to know exactly how it worked. They wanted to know how our patents, all of that stuff. They wouldn't have understood if I would have gone into that depth to begin with. So what I said, you guys are asking me for some pretty personal information. Let me ask you a question. Who's all got a smartwatch? Who's measuring something or tracking? And so they just about all put up their hands. And I said, if one of you phone up that CEO of that company and asked him how it all works, I'll tell everybody my secrets. Because they couldn't. They were just there because you get curious. How in the world can you deliver these kinds of results? We get doctors from all over the place phoning us up, just trying to understand how in the world does that work? And because they're seeing the results, but they don't understand. But it's just because we're providing the right information at the time that the body needs.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me, I mean, what you said before about taking 1,000 supplements, it seems to me the benefit of this is that you can stack unlimited information and you're never going to overdose anyone because they're only going to use what they need. It's a bit like, although homeopathy, I think there is a chance of overdosing on homeopathy. Like when someone takes too much of the remedy, or they continue taking the remedy after they've sort of, had a change, that can sometimes lead to a little bit of a herxheimer, a little bit of a crisis, I think they call it in homeopathy. So it's even sounds like gentler than that.
It is. And that's because there's nothing physical. They're still putting something physical along with that frequency into the body. We're not.
Homeopathy.
That's right. And we believe in all of those things. I'm a frequency guy. Like I love the way frequencies work. And it took me a while. I'm not a doctor. I was just a desperate dad to actually see what drove me was the results. And
Mhm.
so, and when you have that personal experience, it's pretty hard to just ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, ultimately, like, there's most of what we do and use, we don't have to understand how it works. I mean, I don't understand how my phone works either, or even how a telephone or the landline really works. But like a lot of these things are effective, so we use them. So tell me a little bit more about, we were talking before we started about the layers that come into play when you're treating something like Lyme disease. Can you talk a bit about how what you created can help address those layers in a sequential way for people with Lyme?
Well, we always go after the Lyme first because you can't, it's really hard to try and treat a co-infection or even something like mold. Mold's not a co-infection of Lyme. It's just a culprit that comes into the body because it can, because your immune system's so compromised. And it's really hard to deal with that while you have a compromised immune system. And until you deal with the spirochete, until you deal with Lyme itself, you're gonna have an immune system that's compromised. And so that's where we go first. Once you deal with that, then there's lots of things that are going on that aren't Lyme related. They're only in the body because the immune system was compromised. Now your doctors have a fighting chance to come in and help you. It's just that Lyme is very difficult to treat other things because it's still in there causing all the problems that it started causing in the first place. And so you deal with that, then it opens the door for all kinds of help. And that's the approach we took. And we saw it win, and we continue to do that on a daily basis, seeing people overcome.
So you mentioned sort of a 90-day miracle that happened with your kids, with the original study, right? I'm wondering if they're still using the NIKKI, if there's any need for it once you feel like you've both cured the Lyme and recovered your organs and your terrain after Lyme. Is it something that people wear forever, or do they eventually not need it anymore?
They don't need it, but I tell you, when you have Lyme disease, there is something else that happens. I believe that everybody with Lyme also gets PTSD.
Mm.
My daughter in the first couple of years, she'd get a cold and she'd phone me up and she'd say, Dad, it's back. I need the light. She doesn't need the light because once you've dealt with Lyme, the only way that it's going to come back is if you get reinfected. And so they've never used our device for Lyme disease other than in 2016 in that trial. That's the only time they've used it.
Mm.
Now, they use it for other things. They use it for energy. They use it for sleeping. They use it, but these aren't symptoms that they're treating from Lyme disease. Those are more symptoms just from lifestyle. And so that's what they use it for now. And yeah, they've never gone back. But I do know that people like Scott Forsgren, I don't know if anybody knows Scott, but Scott, he's been with us since, I don't know, 2018, a long time. And he always wears his NIKKI, always. Does he have Lyme anymore? I don't think he's got Lyme anymore. He doesn't think he's got Lyme anymore. But there's other things that your body enjoys. I've wore the Lyme program for years, and I've never had Lyme. This is before we had the other programs. And that's because I kept hearing doctors like Dr. Leanne Keneally. She would say, I've never seen anything reduce inflammation like this.
Hmm.
And so I believe personally that the inflammation is one of the precursors to all disease.
Yeah.
And so I started wearing it just for that reason, just to keep the inflammation in my system at bay. And I've never had any major issues of any kind, but And that's not why we were doing it. We weren't doing it for inflammation, but I believe it's because when you deal with Lyme, you get rid of your inflammation because it's causing you issues. And so that's why I think they see such a profound result for inflammation when they use the Lyme device. But now with our other product, with the program that we have for just general wellness, we've taken a lot of the things we've learned in Lyme that we all experience when you don't have Lyme and started applying that. And the results, they're truly profound. They really are. Even
And
kids
is
at university are using it for just getting through exams. They get through exams, they're sleeping well, they're not stressed, and they're focused. Those are the results that we get. But we're working with a major university here in Canada. We've already got their brand on one of the NIKKIs. And so it's very interesting.
are you doing a study about that? Is that going to be
We did.
published?
Oh, we
You
already
did.
did. And we did it with their hockey team. And here's the interesting thing. When they first did that, when they first started doing it, we wanted to see what the hockey players with their inflammation and their pain levels and those types of things. But they were a hockey team at a university. And so they came back and said, we aced our exams. They didn't even talk about how they felt during the hockey game. That was 2 years ago. Now, last year, they haven't won the Western Finals for like 52 years or something. And so they're wearing the NIKKI. And I said to them, so they won. And so they're all celebrating on the ice. And one of my team, they sent me a picture and said, look, there's two guys that looks like they're wearing their NIKKI. And I said, no, they can't wear it while they're playing hockey, I don't think. Anyway, I look and sure enough, and I phone the coach and I say, it looks like there's a couple players wearing the NIKKI. He says, a couple? He says, they all wear it. And so it was interesting.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really a testimonial for sure.
Lyme is hard. And there is no magic pill you can take to just make it go away. You're going to probably herx a little bit. There's a journey. And that's why we charge a little bit more for the Lyme program versus the wellness program, because we always have somebody here at our office that's going to journey with them. People aren't left alone wondering, oh, I feel this way. I wonder what's going on. They can always pick up the phone or send an email, and we're there to walk this journey out with them. Because
Nice.
I know it can be difficult.
Yeah, it can be. Is the NIKKI Plus for Lyme the same device as the wellness with just different frequencies loaded on, or are they completely different pieces of hardware?
They're exactly the same. There's just different frequency sets for Lyme versus for general wellness.
Gotcha. So if someone has the general wellness and they want to upgrade to the Lyme frequencies, they can just connect with FREmedica and get the next package to load onto their device.
That's right. And then they would have both.
Then they have both together. Nice. Well, this has been fascinating. I feel like I definitely have, I mean, could I still, am I now able to walk someone through exactly how this works? No way. But I do have a little bit better of an understanding. I think the image of like 1,000 frequencies or 200 frequencies sort of stacked in waves on top of this other wave, which is the red light that comes out, helped me a lot. So just for your purposes, that was a really helpful visual. And to be honest, the biggest thing is that I've seen it do wonders for allergies. I also took it to a regatta. My son rows crew in college, and I took it to a regatta recently in Tennessee, also the height of allergy season. At that point, I'd been wearing it for 3 weeks or so, and I wasn't really experiencing allergies. So I was passing it around to people who were sneezing and snuffling. And honestly, then I would sit there and count, and it was within 2 to 5 minutes. It was almost like it was out of their mind. And then I'd ask, how are you feeling? What do you mean? Your allergies? Oh, actually, they're better.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it to one guy for pain who has chronic joint pain. And he said when he got up to go get a drink or something, it was like much reduced. He didn't really feel the same pain he usually feels. I gave it to another woman. I mean, I literally was passing it around among all the parents watching this regatta. Another woman took it to bed with her 2 nights in a row for sleep. And the first night said it was one of the best nights she'd had. Her insomnia just kind of was like 90% better. So, yeah, I'm a believer, even though I'm not necessarily an understander yet. I'm definitely a believer. So
Well,
thanks for taking the
I'm
opportunity
not
to
sure if I understand it all.
fair enough.
Well, doctor, I just went down a path that because no other path was working, and it just happened to work. And I don't know if you know Dr. Klinghardt,
Oh, I'm a
but
huge follower. He was on the podcast a couple weeks ago too. Yeah, big
okay,
follower.
what Dietrich was in the early stages involved in our company, and he's still involved with our company, but he's the one that says, you know what? One, you don't have to use red light. You can use white light, and you're going to achieve the same thing because you're just going to load up the cells right underneath the skin in that water barrier. And he says, put as many as you can put in. He says, because the body's only going to use what it needs. And so when you're surrounded with doctors like Dr. Klinghardt and Dr. Cass and Dr. Keneally and Dr. Schaffner, and so you go, it continues. You know, they have great advice, but they're seeing things done that they've never experienced with the way we're delivering these frequencies and the way we bundle them together, which is really exciting for us because we know we're doing something that nobody else has really been able to achieve, particularly in the path that we're doing it. And so it's exciting.
Yeah. Well, one last question that occurs to me. Since you've developed this technology, we've had a new bug on the planet. I wonder if there's any, you know, SARS-CoV-2 layered in there.
No, but you know what? There's nothing that we can't approach. We have learned the way to create these frequency sets, the way to capture them, the way to get rid of the noise that you don't want. So you've got a specific example of something that's going to overcome. And so it's just a matter of somebody says, hey, can you do this? It's just a matter of exploring that. Can we go do it all? We probably can, but it takes time, takes money. And we're extremely focused on Lyme and the program that we have, and we're small. And we are getting so much traction. We just did an event that was just for doctors, 1,500 doctors, 250 doctors left wearing NIKKIs that were purchased at this event. And now we are inundated because we're helping people. Like people were coming up to our booth and they would say, well, I've got Lyme. These are doctors. And so I'd say, well, let me see. Let's see let's see what that looks like. Let's put it on. If you've got Lyme, you're good for about 2 minutes with our device. And it's like clockwork. They had Lyme, there's no question. And they took it off because they didn't want to herx at the event. But they can feel it because it immediately starts to work.
So they basically started to feel, a little bit of inflammation starting from the killing of the bugs and activity.
Yeah, it was going to hurt. They felt that they were about to begin to herx.
Yeah. Wow. And they were able to preclude that by taking the NIKKI off.
Oh yeah.
Go back to the conference. Wow. Okay, my mind is a little bit blown. This is awesome. I really appreciate that. Well, I guess I just really appreciate that you were so persistent and doggedly determined to get your kids well, and that you now are sharing what you learned with the planet. Like what a gift that this is to everyone. So thank you.
Well, it's not for the faint of heart. You know, people say to me, why did you choose Lyme first? Why not the general wellness? Well, Lyme chose me. And it
Yeah.
chose me because I've got a heart for people. We're out there to help create change. And I saw the difficulty that I went through as a family. Half the family not even believing it was true. And it became difficult. And we are not unique. That is around the globe.
Yeah.
You get the doctor saying it's in their head, and then the family, half will believe and half might not. And it just makes it hard. Lyme is just not, it's hard. And we get that.
Yeah. So how do people find you if they want to get themselves either a wellness NIKKI or the Lyme version?
Maybe go to a website called wearenikki.com and they'll find everything that they need to find there.
Beautiful. And I think you've given a discount for my listeners. If people use Healing Grove at checkout, I think they get 10% off. Is that right?
That's right. We'll create a code and you can post a code. And if they use that code, they'll get that benefit.
Thank you so much. I really on behalf of my listeners, I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
Oh, and what I'd like to do is give you a NIKKI to give away. You can give it away any way that you choose to your listeners or to your groups, whatever you want to do with it. We would like to give that to you. And because you know the people that you're in contact with, and if we can help one just by giving one away, let's do it.
Oh, thank you. Wow. On behalf of that lucky person, I thank you as well. That's awesome. Stephen Davis, is there anything else that you would like to share with this audience of people who've been suffering and struggling to find new tools that work that we haven't talked about yet before we end?
One of the things that I would encourage anybody out there that belongs to a Lyme support group, I am more than happy to come and share our story, pick a couple people from that Lyme support group, and loan them a device or give them a device and let everybody experience the benefits that they receive before they even have to take a chance. They obviously can take a chance, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. But we really encourage Lyme support groups to pick a couple people and see for themselves, because it doesn't matter how long you've had it doesn't matter what your age is, it's going to happen in the same manner, and it will happen.
I love it. I love that offer and that beautiful shred of hope for people. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It was awesome.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Healing Grove podcast. If you liked it, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to deepen your experience further, consider grabbing a copy of the Healing Grove playbook. With journal prompts for this podcast and 41 others, it's the perfect place to record your learnings, keep track of the tools you explore, and reflect on your own experience. Finally, it's important to mention that even though I am a doctor, nothing you hear on this podcast, whether from myself or my guests, constitutes medical advice. Any intervention you try should always be discussed with and supervised by a trusted member of your own healing team. Thanks for listening, and see you next time in the Healing Grove.